You'll never be successful, Logan. You don't have ambition, my girlfriend said, at the graduation party before dumping me while everyone laughed. I didn't care. Years later, she walked into a reunion with her new boyfriend and had no idea I was his boss. Hey, Reddit! My ex once told me I had no ambition and dumped me right after graduation. So I kept my head down, built a company from scratch, and forgot she existed, until she showed up years later with her new boyfriend, bragging he'd just been hired at my company. Before we get there, let me start from the beginning. I'm Logan Vale. I'm 31 now, and this started when I was 21, almost 22 by graduation. Back then, I was just another computer engineering student trying to make it through college without burning out or going broke. I wasn't exactly social material. Most of my time went to coding projects, gaming with a few friends, and trying to stay awake through 8 a.m. lectures. I wasn't unpopular, just quiet. I didn't need attention. I liked doing my thing and keeping life simple. That's when I met Vanessa Brooks. If college was a movie, she was one of those people you notice immediately. Loud laugh, always surrounded by people, always talking like she was being recorded for a podcast. She was in business management, one of those business students who loved group projects because it gave her an audience. The kind of girl who never walked anywhere without her phone in her hand. We met at a campus startup fair. I was showing off a basic prototype for a budgeting app I'd built for fun. She stopped by my booth with her friends, did her fake, "Oh wow, this is so cool" voice, and then spent 10 minutes explaining how I could brand it better. I remember thinking she was exhausting, but also kind of magnetic. She asked for my number for networking, but texted me that night asking if I wanted to grab coffee. Networking, my ass. We started seeing each other pretty often after that. She liked that I wasn't like the other guys. I didn't try to impress her, and I didn't care about her social circle. I liked that she made me talk more. She was good at pulling people out of their shell. I'll give her that. For a while, it actually worked. She'd bring snacks to the library when I was studying, sit beside me, talk about her dreams of working in a big firm. She'd ask me about my projects, even if she didn't really get them. It felt nice to be noticed. Then small things started showing up. She'd complain that I didn't network enough. She said things like, "You're so smart, but you don't know how to sell yourself," or "You can't just sit behind a screen your whole life." I'd shrug it off because that's just who I was. I wasn't trying to be the next Steve Jobs. I just liked solving problems. My best friend Theo Cruz, another engineering guy, wasn't a fan of her from the start. Theo's the kind of guy who jokes about everything, but he reads people better than most. After meeting her once, he told me, "She's looking for a man with a resume, not a personality." I laughed it off then. I figured he was just being protective, but looking back, he was dead right. The more time passed, the more she cared about optics. Suddenly, everything was about the future. Who'd make what? Who'd move where? She started hanging out with MBA students, the guys who wore watches they couldn't afford and called every group project a venture. I'd be coding in the lab, and she'd be at some networking event building connections. She'd still text me, but her tone changed. Fewer "miss you" messages, more "you should come, it's good for your image." One night, we went out with some of her classmates. They all talked about job offers and salaries. Someone asked me where I'd be working after graduation. I said, "Nowhere yet. I've got a few freelance offers, but I'm working on something of my own." Vanessa laughed, not a cute giggle, a full-on dismissive laugh, and said, "You and your secret projects. You should be realistic." That stuck with me. When graduation came, most people were taking pictures in their gowns, celebrating job offers. I was still figuring things out. I wasn't in a rush. I wanted to do something I cared about. Vanessa didn't see it that way. She had an internship lined up with a marketing agency in another city and was already acting like she'd made it. The gap between us had turned into a canyon. Our last night together was at a small graduation dinner. A few of her friends, me, and Theo. Halfway through, one of her friends brought up job offers again, and Vanessa said something I'll never forget. "You're brilliant, Logan, but brilliance without ambition is wasted. I need someone who's going somewhere." She said it like it was a joke, but everyone went quiet. I just sat there. No yelling, no scene. I looked at her and said, "You'll see." Theo gave me this look like, "Don't even bother." But it wasn't anger I felt. It was something else. A switch flipped. I realized she wasn't wrong about me being calm, but she was wrong about what that meant. I didn't talk big because I wanted to actually build something before I talked about it. After dinner, she tried to explain herself, said she didn't mean it like that, but then doubled down about wanting someone who's going somewhere. I told her, "Then go." She did. No drama, no fight, just walked out. That was it. I remember going back to my dorm that night, sitting on the floor, laptop open, and just working. Not for her, not to prove anything, just to build, because that's what I do. And yeah, I never saw her again after that, at least not until years later, when I found out what going somewhere really looked like for both of us. After graduation, reality hit like a slow leak instead of a crash. I didn't have a job lined up, barely had $1,000 left in my account, and my degree didn't mean much when every entry-level job wanted 3 years of experience. So I packed up my stuff, moved into a tiny apartment, and told myself I'd figure it out. The place was rough, peeling paint, no air conditioning, and a heater that worked about half the time. But it was all I had, so I kept working with a small desk lamp and a folding chair that squeaked every time I leaned back. I started freelancing online, website bug fixes, small coding projects, data cleanup, basically whatever paid anything. I'd send out hundreds of emails a week and get maybe 3 replies. Most people wanted me to do test work for free, which I learned fast was code for, "we'll ghost you after you finish." I was eating ramen for lunch and dinner, drinking instant coffee because it was cheaper than a machine, and sleeping at sunrise most nights. Theo stayed in town too. He had a part-time IT job and would crash at my place on weekends. He'd always bring food from wherever he worked, toss it on my desk. We decided to team up. He handled clients better than I ever could, so I focused on building while he talked. At first, it was simple stuff. Small business websites, school projects, fixing broken databases for cheap. We made just enough to pay rent and maybe get takeout once a week that didn't come in a cup. After a few months, I started working on a small tool to automate shipping updates for one of our clients. Nothing special, just a way to help them track deliveries faster. I didn't think much of it, but the client loved it. Then they told another business about it, and that company called me too. Suddenly, I wasn't just freelancing. I was solving a problem. Before that small win, there were a ton of failures. One time I built a project for a guy who ran off without paying and reposted my code on some startup forum calling it his idea. Another time, I pulled 3 all-nighters to finish a data scraper that ended up breaking because of one stupid typo. I remember sitting there at 5 a.m., staring at lines of code, wondering if this was just how life was going to be. Constant effort for tiny wins. But slowly, things started shifting. We got a few regular clients. Nothing glamorous, but reliable. I'd wake up and actually have emails worth answering. Theo started jokingly calling us Vortex Systems, before it was even a thing, saying we were sucking in clients one invoice at a time. I laughed, but the name stuck in my head. About a year in, that logistics tool started spreading through word of mouth. Every time someone signed up, they'd recommend someone else. It wasn't huge, but it was enough to make rent without stress. I bought a second-hand laptop with actual cooling fans that worked. Theo quit his part-time job and came on board full-time. That's when we made it official. Vortex Systems was real. We didn't have an office. We had 2 desks we bought off Facebook Marketplace and 2 chairs that didn't match. Our business bank account had barely 3 digits in it, but we had clients. And for the first time, I felt like maybe I was building something that mattered. Every now and then, I'd see Vanessa pop up on my social feeds. Different city, different guy, same captions, never settle, chasing greatness, know your worth. I'd look at it for a second, then scroll past. Not because I was bitter, but because I just didn't care anymore. I realized something during those broke years. People like her chase the image of success. They need it to feel real. Me? I just wanted freedom, to build something I could control. I wasn't rich yet, but I wasn't dependent either. And that meant more to me than any job title ever could. There were nights I thought about quitting, sure, when the internet got cut off, or a client bailed, or my laptop crashed in the middle of saving code. But every time I got that close, something small would pull me back. A new lead, a referral, a message from a client saying the tool saved them hours of work. Those little wins kept me going. Theo kept the energy up when I couldn't. He'd show up with energy drinks, talk about future offices, and say dumb things like, "We'll be the guys giving jobs, not begging for them." I'd roll my eyes, but I believed him. When I think back to those years, they weren't glamorous or inspiring. They were just necessary. Long nights, cheap food, quiet wins. But that's what built the foundation for everything that came later. And yeah, every now and then I'd remember that graduation dinner. Her saying I lacked ambition. I'd laugh a little. Not because I wanted to prove her wrong anymore, but because she had no idea what ambition really looked like. By the end of that second year, Vortex Systems had 5 steady clients, a name, and a little breathing room. It wasn't much, but it was mine. That's when I stopped checking what Vanessa was doing. I stopped caring about her goals. I had my own. By the time I hit 31, life was finally steady. I owned a mid-sized company called Vortex Systems, around 120 employees and still growing. My days ran like code, structured, clean, predictable. I'd get up at 5:30, hit the gym downstairs, come back, brew my own coffee, and review the overnight reports before the city woke up. I liked mornings because no one could bother me yet. No meetings, no emails, no phone buzzing. Just spreadsheets, project dashboards, and silence. At 8 sharp, Harper Lane, my operations manager, usually walked in. She'd been with the company for 3 years and somehow balanced keeping everything together with constantly calling me out. Harper was quick, calm, and sarcastic in a way that didn't feel forced. That morning, she leaned on the doorframe holding her tablet. "Morning, boss robot. Did you even blink today?" I looked up from the screen. One time. Didn't like it. She shook her head. "You need hobbies that aren't spreadsheets." I told her my gym routine counted. She rolled her eyes and went to check on the teams. Around 10, Theo barged into my office waving his phone. Same Theo as always, still cracking jokes, still acting like we were in college even though he now handled half of our client deals. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "Guess who's hosting a 10-year college reunion?" I didn't even look up. Hard pass. "Oh, come on, man. It's next month. Free food, free nostalgia. Reunions are just networking events for people who peaked early," I said. He laughed. "Exactly why we should go. Worst case, it's a comedy show. I don't do small talk." "Good, then I'll do the talking. You can stand there and look successful." Before I could argue, Harper came back with a folder and caught the tail end of it. "What's this?" she asked. "Theo's trying to drag me to a reunion," I said. She smirked. "You're totally going. You just don't know it yet." I sighed. Traitors, both of you. Work went on. We were closing a new contract that week, and most of my day was back-to-back calls. Every few minutes, someone needed approval, numbers, or signatures. Running a company wasn't glamorous. It was just controlled chaos with better coffee. In the middle of it, the idea of a reunion stuck in the back of my head. I hadn't thought about college in years. Those were long nights. Cheap food, bad software, and people who disappeared as soon as things got hard. Vanessa was one of them. By the time I got home, the sky outside my window was dim, and the city lights were flickering on. I cooked something simple, went over a few reports, and finally sat down on the couch. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Hey, stranger. You going to the reunion?" V. I stared at it for a second. The V could have only been one person. Vanessa Brooks. I hadn't heard from her in nearly a decade. I didn't reply, didn't even think about replying. I just took a screenshot and sent it to Theo with the caption, "Told you." He wrote back a minute later, "No way. She still has your number? This is going to be fun." I put my phone face down and left it that way. It's strange what memories show up when someone from your past does. While she was out at networking parties taking selfies with whoever had a title, I was sitting alone, building stuff no one cared about yet. Those dark rooms felt small then, but they were where I learned discipline. She always wanted to look successful. I just wanted to be free enough to do my own thing. I went back to the kitchen, refilled my cup, looked at my phone again. The text was still there. No follow-up message. No "you there?" Just that one line. I've learned something. People like Vanessa never really disappear. They resurface when they sense you've built something they can't explain. Theo called later that night. "You see her text?" "Yeah." "You're going now, right?" I didn't answer right away. I looked around my apartment. Minimalist furniture, the city skyline, the quiet hum of everything I'd built. I wasn't angry or excited, just curious how much had changed. Finally, I said, "Yeah, maybe." Not for her, though. Theo laughed. "Sure, man. Whatever you say." When the call ended, I checked the reunion email again. The details were there. Fancy hotel ballroom, business casual dress code, RSVP link. I hovered over it for a second, then hit yes. Not for revenge, not for nostalgia. Just to see it through. 10 years ago, she told me I wasn't going anywhere. Now I wanted to see who'd really moved. The reunion was held at one of those overly polished hotel ballrooms that smell like perfume and carpet cleaner mixed together. Big chandeliers, shiny floors, too many mirrors. Everyone dressed like they were still trying to convince the world they'd made it. I parked, adjusted my tie, and followed Theo inside. He was already cracking jokes before we even reached the registration desk. The check-in lady handed us badges with our names printed in big letters. Theo stuck his on crooked and said, "This is going to be good." I can feel the cringe in the air. Inside, the place buzzed with awkward laughter and over-the-top compliments. You could tell who'd been waiting for this night. Guys talking too loud about promotions. Women bragging about houses in the suburbs. Everyone pretending life was perfect. Same old crowd, just older. Theo nudged me. Dude, this is like a live-action LinkedIn feed. We grabbed some snacks and stood near a table, half listening to a guy explain his crypto startup. Every few minutes, someone recognized Theo. Not me, which was fine. He'd just grin and say, "Yeah, I'm still helping my buddy with his small tech business." He never said how big Vortex really was. I could tell he was setting something up. About half an hour in, she showed up. Vanessa Brooks. I spotted her from across the room before she saw me. Expensive dress, flawless hair, the same confident stride she had in college, but sharper now, like she'd practiced it in a mirror. She moved from group to group, doing her trademark arm-touching laugh, hanging on to every word people said about money or status. Same habits, different decade. Then I saw the guy with her. Tall, well-dressed, probably early 30s. He carried himself like someone who'd read too many self-help books. She clung to his arm like a trophy. Theo whispered, "Incoming." I didn't move. I just took a sip from my cup and waited. "Logan?" Her voice had that fake surprise tone. "Oh my God, it's been forever." I smiled a little. "Hey, Vanessa." She pulled her boyfriend closer. "This is Blake Monroe, my boyfriend. He just got hired at this amazing tech startup, Vortex Systems. Have you heard of it?" Theo almost choked. I kept a straight face. "Yeah, a bit." Blake grinned, all confidence. "It's an exciting place. Big future. The founder's apparently this low-profile genius type. No one sees him much, but people say he's sharp. I'm hoping to learn from him." We'd never met. He'd started remotely the week before, and I keep my face off our site and decks on purpose. Vanessa's eyes flicked between us. "Logan, maybe you could apply there. You were always good with computers, right?" Theo lost it for half a second, coughed to hide his laugh. I just smiled. "Yeah, maybe." Blake kept talking. How he'd crushed interviews. How he planned to level up fast. The guy loved hearing himself talk. Vanessa nodded proudly at every sentence like she'd trained him for it. He asked what I did now. I said, "Still in tech. Small thing, keeps me busy." He laughed politely. "Hey, every company starts somewhere. You on LinkedIn? Let's connect. You never know, I might be able to put in a word for you." Theo looked like he was about to pass out from holding his laugh in. I gave Blake my personal email, not the company address. He typed it into his phone, looked down, then froze. His face dropped a shade. I could see the exact moment it clicked. My name, my title, my company profile. His hand stopped moving. Vanessa noticed. "What?" He didn't answer right away, just showed her his screen. Her smile twitched. "That can't be right," she said. Blake turned the phone around again. It was my profile. Logan Vale, founder and CEO at Vortex Systems. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The noise of the room went quiet around us, like the universe muted itself for the moment. I set my cup down. "You'll get the hang of things quickly, Blake. Just remember the all-hands meeting Monday morning." Theo finally cracked. He laughed out loud, covered it by pretending to cough again. I turned to Vanessa. "Nice seeing you. Hope you're doing well." Then to Blake, "See you Monday," and I walked off. No drama, no speeches, just gone. On the way out, Theo caught up, still laughing so hard he had to stop walking. "Man, you just broke the simulation. That was beautiful." I smirked. "Told you it'd be a comedy show." He wiped his eyes. "Dude, her face!" She looked like someone unplugged her from reality. Outside, the air felt clean. I hadn't realized how heavy that room felt until we left it. I loosened my tie, hands in my pockets, and looked back once. Through the glass doors, I could still see Vanessa standing there, trying to piece together what just happened. Theo looked at me. "You okay?" "Better than I expected." "Worth it?" "Yeah," I said. "Completely." We drove off, city lights flickering past the windshield. Theo couldn't stop laughing, replaying the whole thing like it was the best movie scene he'd ever watched. By the time we hit the highway, he leaned back and said, "Man, you built the company she bragged about just to impress you. That's poetic." I didn't answer. Just watched the lights blur by and thought about how 10 years of silence ended in 10 seconds of truth. Theo broke the quiet one last time. "You know what this means, right?" "What?" "You're never topping that moment. That's peak revenge. Everything after this is just extra credit." I laughed for real that time. I'll take it. And that was it. No grand finale, no victory speech. Just a calm ride home, windows down, the world finally even. Monday morning hit quiet, like everyone knew something had gone down. The office lights hummed, keyboards clicked, and you could feel the air shift when Blake Monroe walked in. He looked like he hadn't slept. The same guy who strutted around orientation last week talking about career acceleration now moved like he was trying to avoid being noticed. A few employees whispered. I pretended not to hear. I started the team meeting right on time. Morning, everyone. Let's go over progress updates. My tone was steady, same as always. I talked about contracts, system updates, client renewals. No one mentioned the reunion. Blake sat in the back, typing on his laptop but barely breathing. I didn't look at him once. Harper Lane ran through operations next. She noticed the tension immediately but kept going, her usual calm professionalism holding the room together. That's why I trusted her. She never asked unnecessary questions, and she knew when silence worked better than words. After the meeting, she walked by my desk, stopped, and said quietly, "You don't pay me enough to manage this kind of drama." I cracked a small smile. "It's contained." She raised an eyebrow. "For now." Around Wednesday, my receptionist mentioned a woman had been calling repeatedly asking for me. "What's her name?" I asked. "Vanessa Brooks. Says it's about Blake's future opportunities." I told her not to transfer the calls. By Friday, the calls turned into emails. Short ones, full of vague comments like, "We should talk about synergy," or "I can help with Vortex's brand direction." I ignored all of them. The next week, she showed up. No appointment. Just walked straight into the lobby wearing an expensive jacket and that same forced confidence from the reunion. Security buzzed my office. I came down because I didn't want to cause a scene. "Logan," she said, smiling like we were old friends. "I think we got off on the wrong foot at the reunion." "We didn't," I said. She kept going. "Look, I've been thinking. Vortex is doing amazing things, and I have experience in brand development. I could help expand your image, grow the company's presence." I cut her off. "We don't mix business with history." That threw her off. Her tone sharpened. "You think you're better than me now?" I looked at her, calm. "No, just busier." Her jaw tightened. She gave a half laugh that didn't sound real. "You always had that smug look. You didn't deserve what you have." I didn't respond. Silence works better than defense. She turned and walked out, heels echoing through the lobby. Harper saw me coming back up and asked, "Was that her?" "Yeah. She's exactly how I pictured. Worse in person," I said. A few days later, Harper knocked on my door holding her tablet. "We've got a situation," she said. Turns out Vanessa had started reaching out to some of our clients, pretending to be a strategic consultant for Vortex. She'd scraped names and emails off LinkedIn and our public customer page. She was using our name, sending fake email signatures, even forwarding fake meeting requests. I didn't lose my temper. I documented everything, screenshots, timestamps, emails. Then I called our legal advisor. Within 24 hours, she got a formal cease and desist letter. It was short and direct. The following week, HR called me early. "Logan, you might want to come down. We received a complaint through the anonymous form." I read it. She'd filed a false claim saying I'd made verbal promises to hire her and then reneged on them, causing her financial distress. I told HR to pull the security footage from her visit. There's a conspicuous notice in the lobby that audio and video recording is in use, per company policy. The cameras had audio. The video clearly showed the entire conversation, me being professional, her being manipulative, nothing close to what she claimed. I sent the file to our legal team. Within hours, her claim was officially dismissed. HR even apologized for the inconvenience. Harper brought me coffee that afternoon and set it down on my desk. "You handled that fast." "I don't like fires. I like documentation." She nodded. "You're a terrifying man when you stay calm." That night I stayed late at the office. Everyone else had gone home, and the floor was silent except for the hum of the air system. I went through client reports, inbox cleaned, and thought about how the entire mess started with one reunion invite. People like Vanessa don't crash all at once. They overheat slowly. They live off attention, off the next move, off whoever's standing nearest to success. When that stops working, they start clawing. In my experience, you don't win by yelling at people like that. You don't even need to fight them. You just stand still and let them burn out on their own fuel. That's exactly what she was doing now. By the time I left, the city was quiet. The streets were empty, lights blinking red at empty intersections. It felt like peace. Not the loud kind you post about, but the quiet kind you earn by walking away at the right time. And for the first time since college, I actually felt done with her story. It started on a Tuesday. One of my managers sent me a link with the message, "You might want to see this." Vanessa had posted a long rant on LinkedIn. The headline read, "How Women in Business Are Silenced by Men in Power." The post was basically a story about her experience working with a controlling male CEO who used his position to block her career. She never used my name, but it didn't take much guessing. Every detail pointed straight at me and Vortex Systems. Within an hour, the comment section was on fire. Some strangers offered sympathy, but most people who actually knew her started chiming in with old stories. A few of our college classmates dropped screenshots from the past, posts where she'd bragged about dumping me because I lacked ambition. Someone even found an old tweet of hers saying, "Never date a guy who codes for fun. You'll end up paying the rent." By the afternoon, her post had turned into a circus. People called her out for lying, exaggerating, and trying to twist the story. She kept replying to defend herself, but every response made things worse. I didn't comment, didn't post anything, just forwarded the link to Theo with a single text. Internet handled it. He replied with a popcorn emoji and then another one that said, "Told you she'd self-destruct." I went back to work. No point adding fuel to a fire that was already burning fine without me. A week later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. HR from North Star Logic, our biggest competitor. "Hi, this is Clara from North Star," she said, polite but cautious. "We're doing a background check on a candidate who listed experience at Vortex Systems. Name's Vanessa Brooks." I nearly laughed, but I kept it professional. "We have no record of anyone by that name working here," I said. "In fact, we recently had to send a legal notice for impersonation. You might want to verify her documents carefully." There was a pause. "That's all we needed to know. Thank you, Mr. Vale." Turns out she had listed herself as Strategic Consultant, Vortex Systems Partner Network on her resume. That was a bold move, considering we didn't even have a partner network. Later, I heard from one of our recruiters that she was escorted out mid-interview when they confronted her. I didn't smile, but I won't lie. It felt like closure. From what I heard later, she tried calling Blake a few times. He ignored her. Eventually, he told HR he was moving out of state for personal reasons. And I signed his resignation letter myself. There was no bad blood. The guy had just realized who he'd been dealing with. Vanessa, on the other hand, started sending late-night messages again. First a, "Hey, can we talk?" Then a few angry ones. "You think you're untouchable? And you owe me for what I inspired you to become." I didn't reply to any of them. There wasn't anything left to say. By the end of the month, her name was floating around the industry for all the wrong reasons. Nobody wanted the drama that came with her. I stayed focused on work, product updates, client expansions, the next funding round. I didn't even tell most people in the company what had happened. There was no need. She'd written her own ending. All I did was stay out of her way while it played out. And honestly, that's all people like her ever need. A little time and a spotlight. They do the rest themselves. 6 months after the chaos with Vanessa, Vortex Systems hit a milestone I hadn't even imagined during those broke apartment days. We officially closed our Series C funding, $75 million from a major New York investment firm that specialized in scaling tech companies. The investors wanted a press release, a quote, the usual publicity noise. I kept it simple. We're just getting started. A week after the funding announcement, a well-known tech magazine reached out. They'd been tracking Vortex for a while and wanted to do a profile piece on how we grew so fast with almost zero marketing or outside noise. I wasn't really into that kind of spotlight, but Harper convinced me it'd help recruiting. The journalist came to our office, took a tour, asked all the usual questions, the early days, the first client, how we built the culture. I told him the truth. It wasn't about being flashy, it was about consistency. When the article came out, the title made me smirk. The Man Who Built Quietly. It described me as a founder who prefers execution over attention. It mentioned how we grew from 2 desks and a second-hand coffee machine to a multi-million-dollar company. There was even a picture of me sitting at my desk, looking half as serious as I really was. That morning, Harper came into my office holding her phone. "Not bad for someone with no ambition," she said, smiling. I looked up. "Guess I picked up a little along the way." She laughed. "No, you just stopped explaining yourself to people who don't get it." Later that day, the article hit LinkedIn. It blew up fast. People tagging it, congratulating, sharing quotes. I scrolled through for a minute before something familiar caught my eye. Vanessa Brooks. "So proud to see how far he's come. Always knew he had potential." There it was. The audacity in plain text. For a second, I almost laughed out loud. The same woman who once said I lacked ambition, now trying to rewrite history. But I didn't have to respond. The comments handled it. Within minutes, our old classmates and mutual connections started replying under her comment. "Didn't you dump him for being unambitious? Girl, you literally said he'd never make it." Someone even attached a screenshot from college. Her old post saying, "Finally free from dead weight. Time to date someone with real goals." The thread exploded. By noon, her comment vanished. Deleted. Classic move. Harper walked by and asked, "You see the mess under your article?" "Yeah. Want me to moderate or remove anything?" I shook my head. "No need. Internet's taking care of it." That evening, I got an email from Blake Monroe. Subject line, appreciation. He said he'd found a new job at a logistics software company out west. Said he was doing well, learning fast. He thanked me for not humiliating him after the reunion, for being professional through everything, and for giving him a fair chance even when the situation got awkward. His exact words, "You didn't have to treat me with respect after that night, but you did. It showed me what real leadership looks like. I'm grateful. I respected that." Blake had been caught in the middle of someone else's storm. He didn't deserve what came with it. I replied, "Glad you landed somewhere solid. Keep moving forward." Later, I showed Theo the email. He squinted at the screen. "You're way too classy." I'd have replied with a meme of a phoenix or something. I laughed. "That's why I handle PR." "Fair enough," he said. A few days later, Theo walked into my office holding a notebook with a terrible hand-drawn title on it. "She left him. He left Earth." I looked up from my screen. "What is that?" "My retirement plan," he said. "I'm writing your biography." "Delete it immediately." "Can't. It's art." He leaned on the doorframe, grinning. "You realize this whole thing is basically a movie, right? Guy gets dumped, builds an empire, keeps his cool the whole time." I smirked. "Except the part where I still have to approve budgets and fix broken code." Theo waved him off. "Minor details. Every legend starts in a small apartment with a broken laptop." 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. I didn't even need to check the contact. "You'd be nothing without me. I made you ambitious." Same tone, same ego. I stared at it for a few seconds, then deleted it without replying. No anger, no satisfaction, just nothing. That was the real ending. Because at some point, you realize closure isn't a conversation. It's indifference. When you genuinely stop caring, that's when you win. After deleting the text, I went back to reviewing project timelines for our next launch. That was my world now. New products, new hires, new challenges. Real things that actually mattered. Later that night, I stayed a bit longer at the office. The place was quiet except for the low hum of the air conditioning and the city lights blinking through the windows. The same city I used to look at from that tiny apartment above the laundromat. Back then, I wanted to prove I could make it. Now, I didn't need to prove anything. I thought about what Vanessa once said. "You lack ambition." Maybe she was right, by her definition. Her version of ambition was social climbing, being seen, getting applause. Mine was building something that didn't collapse when the noise stopped. She wanted a man with ambition. I wanted peace. Turns out I found both. Ambition isn't loud. It's steady. It's showing up every single day even when no one's clapping. It's working quietly until your results do the talking for you. Some people chase status. I build systems. It's slower, but it lasts. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and looked around the empty office one last time before leaving. Everything in that space had started from nothing but a stubborn idea and a few late nights. As I stepped into the hallway, I realized something simple but solid. The best kind of revenge isn't success. It's peace. And peace, unlike ambition, doesn't need an audience. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.